today is going to, speaking of rest, that's kind of like the theme of our time together today.
Yeah.
Um, there is so much happening around us, so much activity that's going on around us that's, vying for our attention, our awareness. But the good news is that we get to choose where we place our attention. And and we also get to choose from what point of view that we observe all of the activities that are happening around us. And that is the beauty of it all, is that we get to choose. And in that choosing, sometimes we have to choose again because the first choice did not bring us peace, or it actually detached us from our peace. And so, that's what one thing I like about the Course in Miracles. And that last chapter, chapter 31, I think the last section, the title of that section is Choose Once Again. So and it says, it goes on to say, where we made a faulty choice, we can correct that faulty choice and choose again. And that's the beauty of it all. Therein lies our power, therein lies our freedom, and that is the freedom to choose, right? Because every choice don't lead to peace. Some choices lead us away from peace. Some choices lead us to a very disturbing experience, which none of us desire, right? And so we do have that power to choose again, and for that I'm grateful. But the reality is, we need to make the shift from identification to just being. To just being, right? Because when we strip ourselves down from every experience, from every thought, from every idea, from every emotion, from every sensation, from all of our experiences, if we removed all of our experiences, then what is at the root of that is our essential self, or our essence, or our nature, which has nothing to do with any of those identifications, right? It had nothing to do with our accomplishment. It has nothing to do with our experiences, but who we really are at the core of our nature has no identification at all. It's just pure presence, pure awareness, right? It is the water that is the base of the tea or the drink or whatever you mix into water. It may change the experience of the water. Say you add some tea, or what all do we add to water? We add tea to it. We add what? Flavoring, colors, whatever. Whatever you mix with the essential element of water, yes, it creates an experience, a different experience, but the water is always present. The base of that mixture is the water. And we color that water. We color our lives with all these identifications and all these experiences and all these thoughts, and right. And our whole life journey is about moving from one experience to another. But what is really at the base, or what is at the essence of all that, what is essential to all of that, and what is always present, is our being, our I am self, our infinite self, the one element that is in all of life, right? And so we made that shift back in July and August, and we start talking about, in reality, it's not about identifications. In fact, we need to shed ourselves of our ideas, ideas, and we need to return to just the knowing of our, what is always present, I am self, which has no identification. It has no history. It has no point of reference. It just is. As the Course in Miracles says, that it just is, right? And so we made that shift, and we're going to continue talking along that line of just returning to our essential self, which has never gone anywhere. That's why the Course talks about we're on this journey called life, and this journey is without a distance, because in reality, nothing really changes. We are, or we remain as we were created. We remain this essential self. You know, I say we're here at the on the East Coast, at the Atlantic, at the beach, and when I looked out at the ocean this morning, I saw all of that activity out there. I saw people, I saw waves, I saw some vessels on the ocean, I saw birds flying. There was movement, right? There was activity. There was experiences that were going on. But I felt this sense that at the depth of that ocean out there, there's peace, there's quietness, there's stillness, there's rest. And at the depth of that ocean, it is undisturbed by any of the activities that are taking place. Right? At the depth of the ocean, you know, and they say the ocean goes down for miles, right? That there's calmness and there's peace, there's, you know, in other words, that is that's the essential foundation of the ocean, is the ocean depth. But in every moment, there's a different wave coming to shore. There's a different activity. There's a different event. And that's like in our lives, there's every day that we wake up with a new thought or a different thought. Or we may wake up with a feeling of joy and happiness, or we may wake up with a feeling of anxiety or a feeling of separation, right? And then we wake up with different emotions. You know, that's energy and motion. We may wake up on today feeling very energetic and excited, like I was this morning, because I knew I was going to be in this space. Or sometimes we wake up in the morning and that energy is at a low ebb. I don't want to get out the bed. I don't want to go to work, or I don't want to face this person, or I don't want to face this situation. I mean, all these are energies, right, that flow in and out of our presence, and we're getting to choose how we interact with those energies. We're getting to choose how we interact with those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions, those sensations. You know, we're getting to choose how we interpret how we're feeling, what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're tasting. I just had some strawberries this morning and some blueberries. And I, you know, was very aware of the aliveness that was in that kind of food, right? You know, versus eating a processed piece of food. You know, there's a different sensation, there's a different experience, right? There's a different perception, right? Example of the ocean and all of the activity. And there's at no time that the ocean at its depth is undisturbed by any of those activities. Even the fish that swim through its waters, at its depth, there's stillness, there's quietness, there is peace, there's tranquility, there's this place of rest. There's this place where there's no change, right? There is no alteration. It's just total silence, total peace, total rest. It's like being. And when we relate that to our quest to not only find peace, but to stay in a place of peace, stay in a place of rest, then the invitation today is, right, is to return to our essential being, to be our essential self, the essence. And that takes no effort. It takes no activity, right? It just is. And that place is always there. Who we are in truth is always there. You know, that perfect creation that we are is always there. It's just a matter of our awareness, where we're choosing to put our awareness, where we're choosing to give our calmness and peace to. You know, do we remain in peace, or do we get so caught up in the activities, the thoughts, the events, the ideas, what's going on in politics, what's going on in sports, what's going on in the entertainment world, what's going, I mean, because things are happening all around us all the time. And we're getting to choose. So I think the art or the goal in our journey is, number one, knowing that our true nature is always present and is always undisturbed, like the depth of the ocean. I think that is job one, to know ourself, our essential self. And then and I think number two, the goal is to live our life with all the experiences and all the activities, but always be aware of that essential self. To be able to experience all of it from this place of peace, from this place of rest, from this place of oneness, right? From our beingness, from our undisturbed, quiet self. To be in the midst of all kinds of chaos and have the presence of mind, right? To experience it from a place of rest, from our essential self, from our place of being. That's what I think. I know that's what my goal is every day when I awake, and I'm sure it's everyone's. But how we go about it is, I guess that's the $100,000 question, right? How do we go about remaining in our infinite I am self, regardless of what arises in our day, regardless of what may come or what may go? Because just think about it, all your life, things have come and things have gone, things have gone. Nothing is constant in this world of form. There's constant change, right? And you've heard me say here before, the only changeless thing in this world is you. Not your body self, right? But your I am being reality. That is what the only thing that is constant. But do we check out of that, or do we check into that, right, and have our life experience through that? And I think that is the goal, right? And so, hey, that's where we are. Shifting from identification to the awareness of being. Yeah, no more identification. Identifications they can become burdensome, heavy, you know, but and it moves us from the depth of our being, calls us, to have these experiences um, that are antithetical to our nature, right? We don't do well with anxiety. We don't do well with fear. We don't do well with we don't perform very well with where there's separation and there's division, and where there is the overactivity of where there is disharmony. We don't fare well in those environments, right? Why? Because it goes against our nature. It goes against our being. And so when we talk about awareness of our being versus identification, because we're making this shift, right? Just becoming aware of what is, what always is, right? Like the depth of that ocean out there, it always is there. It's always quiet, right? You remember the story, if you remember the story from the Bible about the prodigal son, where the son took his inheritance and left home and went out into the world, and he, story goes that he, through riotous living, squandered all of his inheritance, and then he ended up in a state that was worlds away from what he was, from what he knew, right? And then at some point, it says in that story that he came to himself and he returned home, right? Because he always knew that home represented this place of rest, this place of undisturbed, this place of plentifulness, abundance, this place of safety, protection. I mean, that's what home represents. And so that's a great story and a great metaphor to kind of like, it kind of really tells our own history, our own story, each one of us individually, where we left this place, this undisturbed place, to come to a place of disturbance, only to try to find the undisturbed place. Right? All of our lives is a prodigal journey. Right. I have left my being. I have left my nature. I have allowed all these experiences, all these thoughts, all these sensations, all these emotions, right, to take me away from what I am. But in reality, it can never take you away, right? Because presence is always there. Who we are is always there. Your beingness is always there. And so it's just a matter of making the shift, right?
Yeah.
But there is only one foundation.
Yeah.
And that is our being, and that we all share that being, and it is eternally present. It never changes, it never fluctuates, it never vacillates. But it is the one thing which, in fact, it is the foundation from which all activity has a chance to express itself. It is the foundation from which, we can have emotions, that we can have feelings, that we can have thoughts, that we can have perceptions and dreams and hopes and beliefs. And it's like I've used this illustration before. It's like the big screen, right? That the movie is projected upon. And it doesn't matter what the content is of the movie, the screen is undisturbed. The screen is never changed, right? In fact, the screen is what allows the activities, right, to have an expression. So our I am infinite self, who we are in truth, is perfect love, as perfect oneness, as pure presence, as awareness of being. It is the foundation for us to even have this human experience. But what happens is we lose sight of that reality, that foundation, and we get caught up in the what? In the activity, the events, the sensation, and we lose our way, we lose ourselves, and we're like the prodigal son. We try to find our way back home. And so there's a shift that's happening that happens like it says in the story. The son came to himself. And when did the son come to himself? He didn't come to himself when everything was right in order. But he came to himself when everything was in disorder and disharmony.
Right.
And when he seemed like, everything that he desired was in a distant place, but in reality, it was right there present with him. And that was when he remembered who he was in that moment, in that very moment, in that holy instant, as the Course in Miracles said. In that holy instant, when he remembered who he was, right? Then all of his experiences went poof, didn't matter anymore. He said, I'm going back home to my father, right? And yeah, and so all of that story is an illustration, really, of our human experience, where we detour into separation, leave oneness to detour into separation, only to say, this ain't it, I'm going back home. And so, like I said, like the one goal is the act of returning to our awareness of our I am essential eternal self. That's job one. And job two is living our life and remaining fully aware of our I am self in all our experiences. Like Yolanda and I here at the beach, right? And we'll join the scenes and the sights and the sounds, right? But we're enjoying it from a place of our awareness of who we are. It becomes this beautiful dance, this beautiful experience, right? Because now we understand that we are not here for those things, but those things are here for us. In fact, that these things are a projection that actually is coming from us, right? It's not, life is not happening to us, but life is a projection that comes from us, right? And so our experiences become a reflection of whether we're coming from our oneness or our truth nature, or whether we're coming from, or whether we're just have forgotten that, like the prodigal son, and we're just caught up in the things out there where none of the things out can never bring us the love and the joy and the peace that we that's who we are. So I want to finish today's session by kind of reading through some of the lines here in lesson 109 from A Course in Miracles, from workbook 109, out of the workbook for students section of A Course in Miracles, because I think this really amplifies what we've been talking about. And the title of this lesson is called I Rest in God. Right? I rest in God. But I'm gonna change some of the reference here. Right? I want to rephrase this by saying, I'm not changing, but I want to rephrase it by saying I rest in love, or I rest in being. In other words, the Bible says that there is a rest for the people of God. And it said that we should labor to enter into that rest. Right? But when you look out in the world and see the unrest, right, or the lack of peace, then you wonder if we are really laboring to enter into that rest, right? And so I want to use this lesson to kind of bring home the message for today and what we're trying to, what we are accomplishing here. And this is kind of the theme of Yolanda and I, our visit here at the beach. You know, we came here purposely to rest, and we call it chill. We came to chill. In other words, we came here to really just focus on and loving on ourselves, right? And so it starts out here, lesson 109, and it says, we ask for rest today. So this is kind of like a meditation, right? Think of this as kind of like a meditation or a prayer. So we're going to finish our session today in this meditation of prayer, of rest. And so we ask for rest today in quietness, unshaken by the world's appearances. And there are many right now. Some disturbing from the surface. And we ask for peace and stillness in the midst of all the turmoil born of clashing dreams. We ask for safety and for happiness. Although we seem to look on danger, notice now, we seem to look on danger and on sorrow. And we have the thought, now here's the key here. And we have the thought that will answer our asking with what we request. And what is that thought? I rest in love. I rest in God. I rest in being. I rest in my awareness of being, of my true nature. I rest in my essence. Because notice here, this is describing the characteristics of our true nature. It says in quietness, who we really are is quietness. It says in peace, who we really are is peace. It says in stillness, who we really are is stillness. Safety and happiness. And then it says, I rest in God, or rest in love, or rest in being. It says, this one thought will bring to you the rest and the quiet and the peace and the stillness and the safety and the happiness that you seek. I rest in love. This thought has power to wake the sleeping truth in you, whose vision sees beyond appearances to that same truth that is in everyone and in everything that there is. See, when we're coming from our true being, right, then we see this in everyone and in everything. The Course calls it Christ's vision. The Bible calls it in Christ, saying the same thing. In other words, our point of viewing is from our essential nature, is from our essential I am infinite self, which is love. It says, I rest in God. It says, here is the end of suffering for all the world, and everyone who ever came and yet will come to linger for a while. Here is the thought in which all creation is born again to recognize itself. You know, the term to be born again, like Jesus said, you must be born again. He said, you must recognize yourself. Basically, you must recognize the essence of who you are. It's but a recognition. You don't have to do anything. He said, you just need to but remember, right? And that remembrance have been placed in all of our hearts and all of our minds. And so we rest in God. We rest in love. and we rest in our being. Completely undismayed, this thought will carry you through storms and strife, past misery and pain, past loss and death, and onward to the certainty of love. There is no suffering it cannot heal. There is no problem that it cannot solve, and no appearance but will turn to truth before the eyes of you who rest in love. This is the day of peace. You rest in love. And while the world is torn by winds of hate, your rest remains completely undisturbed. Yours is the rest of truth. Appearances cannot intrude on you, and there are many appearances that are asking for our attention, asking for our awareness. It says, appearances cannot intrude on you. It says, you call to all, we call to all humanity to join us in this rest, or join you in your rest. So this is, so notice the transition here. Out of our returning home, returning to our true nature of quietness and rest and peace and stillness and happiness and safety from a world of turmoil and division and strife, which is on steroids right now. That's why I like the title of the conference that's coming up. The theme is, awakening beyond identity in a world on fire. Because remember, we have made that shift from identity to being. So we have to awaken beyond our identities, right? And this world on fire just described the activities that are swirling all around us, asking for us to join in on the division, the separation, the strife, the fighting, all of the things that don't promote oneness, all of the things that are contrary to our nature, everything that is contrary to quietness and peace and stillness and happiness and safety. But we get to choose. We get to choose where our attention goes. We get to choose to not look at the change in color of the tea or the water because we put tea in it, but we get to still focus on the foundation. We get to focus on the nature, which is the water. The water is always present. Our love nature is always present. Who we are is always present. Plethora of activities, plethora of things that are vying for our attention. But when we've made a choice, right, to return home like the prodigal son, then we get to experience ourselves, right, in a real way. And so it says. And so now we make the shift because I know who I am. I'm in my quiet place, my place of rest. My perception is now coming from a place of love, from my reality. And now my responsibility is what? To call everyone else into this place. That's what it's saying right here. It says, you call to all to join you in your rest, and they will hear and come to you because you rest in God, or you rest in love. They will not hear another voice than yours because you gave your voice to God or to love, and now you rest in Him and let Him speak through you. In Him you have, or in our being, in our reality, in our love nature, it says, you have no cares, no concerns, no burdens, no anxiety, no pain, no fear of future, and no past regrets. And just think, the whole world is desiring all of this, what I just read. No cares, no concerns, no burdens, no anxiety, no pain, no fear, no future, fear of the future, or no regret of the past. And it said, this state of being reside in our returning to our true nature, our essence, remembering who we are. That's where it is. It's not out there, but it's forever and eternally present within ourselves. It is our true nature. It is the depth of the ocean, undisturbed. And so in timelessness, you rest. While time goes on by without, it said, as time goes on, while time goes by without its touch upon you, for your rest can never change in any way at all. So you rest today. And as you choose, and as you close your eyes and sink into stillness, let today of rest and respite reassure your mind that all its frantic fantasies were but the dream of fever that has passed away. Let it be still and thankfully accepting its healing. No more fearful dreams will come. Now you rest in love. So I'm going to stop right there because there's some more here, but so yeah, so what is our takeaway for today? We just rest in ourself. We rest in our being. We rest in what is true. But at the same time, we call all humanity into our rest. Because in reality, when you rest in the truth, the whole world rests in truth because there's only one of us. Right? There's only one of us. So when you awake beyond your identities to your place of being in a world on fire, in a world that is disturbed, we bring all that error to the truth. Right? And so this is the rest that we have been called to. This is the expression that we have been called to be as the light of the world, to where accepting the atonement for ourselves, that starts there, accepting your reality. And then from that place, right, where all the fantasies and all the dreams that was once, we was once carried away in our own self, right? We now bring we call all that into this place of rest. Just like the depth of the ocean that's behind me. Every wave, every person that enters that ocean, every ship that goes across that ocean, every sea animal that swims in that ocean, every bird that flies above that ocean. The ocean, the depth of the ocean where it's undisturbed is calling it to the place of peace, place of stillness. Because all of that activity is temporary. And when time is no longer necessary, time is only necessary because there's still some sleeping, dreaming prodigals that are trying to find their way home. And we're here to help now. Our place is to help all humanity by remaining in our place of reality. And now in seeing from that place of reality. And that's our part. And so it is. And I rest in God. I rest in love. I rest in reality. I rest in my being. So go forth today and allow that being to shine everywhere you go. Because you are indeed the light of the world. You are indeed a city on a hill, like Jesus said, right? You are that place of rest.